Morning. Another exciting week for us, opportunity to go down to Turnpike and play a regional football game. As I've said in the past, I really enjoy that part of college football. I'm not so sure how much longer that can be the case, as college football evolves, but I think when you have opportunities to play these regional games, it's always fun. I think a lot of the players know each other, so it's exciting for us. They have an excellent football team down there at Temple, led by a really fine football coach, Steve Addazio. One of the main architects of two national championship teams at Florida, and you see pieces of that offense that won two national championships. You see that in their offense at Temple, and you see how they're progressing as the year goes on. On a personal note, this is exciting for me, an honor to coach against Steve. Steve is one of the truly fine offensive line coaches in the country before becoming a head coach. And I remember in the late 90s taking a trip up there when I was at Hofstra, and he was at Syracuse. The defensive line coach at Hofstra at the time, Dan Quinn, and we drove up there to meet with Steve and their defensive line coach, Deke Pollard, who was another legend in the business. And I always remember that visit up there, and I think as you talk to people who coached offensive line, certainly in the Northeast, Steve was one of the truly fine teachers of offensive line, and everybody envied how hard and how physical his players played. And I think you see that also in this offensive line at Temple. They really are a good group and a physical group, and make it very difficult to handle. With that, I would open it up for questions.
Kyle, Temple's running back, what concerns you about him?
Well, he's the all-time leader in Boston College history in rushing yards in the 3 years that he played there. So he certainly is an established player and has continued to do that. Now at Temple, 69 carries for 310 yards, over 4 yards a carry. And in this offense, because there are elements of option in the offense, it creates one-on-ones for a guy like him, and he's a make-you-miss back, much like the one we have.
Kyle, this officially starts the second half of the season. Where, as you look back, or if you can, would you like to see this team make the next improvement or next step up? Just in general terms, is there one area somewhere?
Well, I think as you go through the season, what really becomes critical now is your depth, your second-level players. Maybe it's something that goes unseen on game day a little bit by the casual fan, but every team at this point in the season has lost some players, have some players banged up week to week, and now the back half of your schedule is usually loaded with conference games, which in our conference are very physical games, and your depth really begins to show the back half of the schedule. So that to me is critical, that the players who really aren't playing as much in the games, maybe they play 10 to 15 to 20 snaps a game, but those snaps are critical because when they're on the field, they're the starter. They have to continue to develop their game as we go through the back end of the season.
The kicking situation, should we kind of the same thing, wait and see with Federico?
Right now, Borghese, if we played today, would be our starting kicker. And I think what we'll do is we'll evaluate Kyle as we go through the week. I think like any other starting position, there's a reason why Kyle Federico was the starting kicker at the beginning of the year. But if he's not 100%, we have a lot of confidence in Nick that he can do the job for us like he did on Saturday.
Kyle, in regards to the quarterbacks, a couple now have thrown for big games against you. Cleveland has got a couple of interceptions, threw for about 300 yards. Is it a product of anything that they're doing or not doing in the secondary, or is it, you played the run very well, obviously, is it a product of what you're focusing on more?
I think the way you asked that question is very interesting, because you said they've thrown for 300 yards even though they've thrown for a couple interceptions. Those interceptions are critical. And I think some of the reasons those passing numbers are inflated is because of the way those games have gone. And when you have a two-score lead, in our case, not just two scores, 2 touchdowns, 2 two-point conversions just to tie the game, it puts the other team in a position where they need to throw it. And it changes the way you play defense. And ultimately, even though you may give up some passing yards, if you can get them to turn the ball over, which we did, you're playing really good defense. So for us, as I've said before, it starts with stopping the run. That will never change. If you stop the run and you can make a team one-dimensional, you're going to have chances to turn the ball over.
How are you guys health-wise coming out of Syracuse?
I feel very good. I don't think we're any worse for wear than we were going into the game.
Any concern about the workload with Jameson? He's on pace for over 300 carries this year. Do you see any wear and tear yet? Would you like to ease off? I guess he's averaging about 26, 28 carries a game.
I don't have any concern for it. I think You know, those things are things maybe you handle in your off-season program to make sure that, just like we did with Ray. You know, Ray carried the ball quite a bit his first and second year, and we did some things after that second year in the off-season to make sure, you know, he was healthy and 100% and felt good going into his third year. Yeah, I think this is the first time in his career that he's doing this, so I'm not really concerned about it. I think he's in excellent shape. And I also feel like Savon gets a little closer to 100% every week. And as that happens, you know, you saw it on Saturday. I think Savon had 7 carries in the game. You know, we've got somebody else that we have a lot of confidence in can make plays for us running the football. So I feel good about where Juwan is right now.
How big of a jump did he make? Because remember, he came in out of shape last training camp and, you know, took a while to get going. How far has he come?
I don't spend too much time looking at what happened last year. I know from when I became the head coach, Juwan had an excellent offseason, had an excellent winter conditioning program, had an excellent summer program. Coach Cole raved about him. And I'm really excited about what he's done, you know, since February. And I really believe he came into training camp in the best shape of his life, and I think that showed.
Kyle, as you begin the second part of this season, what has been the biggest adjustment you've had as a head coach this year?
I think to me, it's really, you know, day to day, making sure I touch base with every part of the program. That's the biggest adjustment when you go from being really not a coordinator, but being a position coach like I was as the offensive line coach. Now, being the assistant head coach, I had other things I did that encompassed the whole team, but not really on a day-to-day basis the way I do it now. So that's the biggest difference. Instead of being in one room with one group of players every day, now I really need to touch base with every room in this building every day.
Well, Kyle, could you talk a little bit about their quarterback? It looks like he's a dual threat guy who could run it and maybe pass it.
There's no doubt. I think what they have found in Chris Coyer is they have found a guy who can run their offense the way Tim Tebow ran their offense for them down in Florida. He's that type of player. He has more carries than any other individual on their team. You know, so he is somebody that they want the ball in his hands. They want him to run the football. And when he throws it, you just look at their receivers. You know, number 5, over 16 yards a carry. Number 27, over 25 yards a carry. Number 86, over 20 yards a carry, a reception, I should say. Number 80, over 30 yards a reception. So when their receivers catch the ball, it's for chunks of yardage. So obviously this young man's got a talented arm. So he's a good runner. He's a durable runner to carry it that many times. But he's not a guy who just has one piece to his game. He can throw it, and when he does, he makes big plays.
Kyle, is there anything special about a game with so many connections between the programs, whether it be, you know, a guy like Abdul Smith on Temple, or, you know, you guys at least scouted the majority of those players coming out of high school?
For us, the motivation is winning a Big East championship. You know, for us, the motivation is to do something at Rutgers that's never been done in the history of our football program. So it's not a motivational thing. But I do think it's an enjoyable experience for the fans of both schools. It's a drivable game, so there should be nice representation from both schools at the game. I think it's fun for our players. I think we know, they have familiarity with a lot of the players on each team. I think that's always enjoyable. But I don't see it as something that adds any more to the competition part. The competition part is taken care of because we're playing a Big East championship game, and our goal this week is to be 1-0.
Kyle, could you talk a little bit about your pass rush? It looks like last week you guys finally got multiple sacks.
I think, you know, some of those were on blitzes, and then, you know, Khalil Glaudes was on really just a 3-man rush. I think Coach Smith's done an excellent job of mixing pressure and then what we call an offense max drop. You know, 8 defenders in coverage, which again, if the quarterback takes more time, which generally he does when you have 8 players in coverage, we have some high motor guys on the defensive line. A guy like Khalil Glaude is truly a high motor guy, and ultimately that's why he got the sack, because if you watch that play, it started outside. He was rushing to the outside, was being blocked by 2 players. The quarterback was forced to step up in the pocket, and that's where Khalil kind of bursted back to the middle and was able to create the sack.
Coach, could you talk about 2 of your fine defensive players, Green and Logan Ryan, and just what you've seen out of them in the first half of the season?
2 of the better playmakers on our defense. You know, I think Kasim, certainly in the position he's in on our defense, a lot of things get funneled his way, and we're counting on him to make those plays. That's why he's there. You know, he's proven he's been able to do that, certainly at a very high level last week, but consistently week in and week out. You know, Kasim makes a lot of plays for us. And Logan, a lot of times, gets matched up one-on-one and does a tremendous job in coverage of being able to cover receivers, defend passes, but he's also shown the ability this year to pick them off as well.
Kyle, can you just talk about your defensive philosophy for fast guys? I mean, Marcus Thompson was a running back, Glaude was a linebacker, Green safety, Jamal Morrell was a wide receiver. I mean, did that all play into it, wanting fast guys on defense?
I think it does. I think every school has their philosophy of how they want to play defense, and we certainly have ours. And our philosophy always starts with speed, and that's not to say we want smaller players. We don't. We would love bigger players, and we have some younger guys in our program that are bigger, but ultimately we're never going to sacrifice speed to get size. We're not going to do that.
How have your linebackers fared in pass coverage in your estimation this season?
I think they've done a good job. I'm pleased.
What pleases you about their effort?
I think when you look at it, we have had the ability to ultimately turn teams over. And that, to me, is the sign of really good pass defense. I don't look at it in terms of yards passing, because I have yet to see the statistic that says if you throw for this many yards, you win the game. So to me, that there are certain statistics that over time win football games. That has not been one of them. But I know turnovers is. So Kasim Green with an interception in each of the last 2 games. Those are the types of things ultimately that help you win games.
Coach, go back to Kasim Green for a moment. Talk about what makes him so special, what makes him a leader off the field besides performances he's put in for you.
I think, and it's hard on our defense to really talk about just one guy when you talk about leadership. But if you ask me to talk about guys like Scott Vallone, Kasim Green, Steve Baharnas, Deron Harmon, Khalil Glaude, Marvin Booker, what I would tell you is the things you don't see are the meetings, are the film sessions that they have with each other, where they say, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to do this. And they grab the younger players and they say, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to watch this film. They're not asking them, they're telling them. That's leadership. To me, leadership begins with actions, not words. And I think those guys do that at all times, both on the practice field, on game day, and just as importantly in the meetings.
Kyle, Tim Wright, was there something that he didn't have a catch this past week? Why?
It's really nothing more than the progression the quarterback goes through. And I think week to week, those things are going to happen. As you talk to our receivers, as you talk to our team, I think it's a very unselfish team. I don't think anybody goes into the game saying, I want this or I want that. They know that however the plays play out, that's how they'll play out. And, this week it could turn out that he has 10 catches, things that have happened in the past. But, that's really just, again, we don't want Gary saying, hey, I need to get Timmy Wright a catch. That's not the way we want to play football.
I know you say you take each game at a time, but what's it been like to be part of this kind of a start? Has kind of a boost it's given the football program and just, I don't know, the morale around everything starting off this way?
We're not oblivious to the excitement that it creates. We understand that. It's exciting for the campus. It's exciting for our fans. It's certainly our goal. It's something we set out to have as a goal. We want to be 1-0 each week, which when you get to this point in the season, that's where you are. So we have been fortunate to be able to accomplish what we've set out to do every week. But for us, after we come back on Sunday and we've assessed the game and we start our drill of moving on, ultimately that does not play into what happens this week. And if you spend too much time patting yourself on the back for what you've accomplished, you're going to lose sight of what you need to accomplish this week. So we'll evaluate the whole body of work at the end of the season. Right now, our job is to be 1-0 this week. I'm glad it's exciting for the fans, exciting for our students. On some level, there's certainly an entertainment value to it, which is important in college athletics. But for us as a football team, the only thing that matters is being 1-0 this week.
Kyle, what have you seen out of Carazola from that H-back, fullback kind of slot in his blocking?
He's done a good job of morphing himself a little bit more into that fullback role, and I think as he goes forward, he'll get a little bit better at it each week. It's not something completely new to him. We were doing a little bit of it with him at the beginning of the year, but we're pleased with how he's been able to take on a little bit more and more each week.
How have you tweaked the offense because of the change in fullback?
Not really much in terms of plays. Really more just in terms we play the game a little bit more in what's called 12 personnel. 1 back, 2 tight ends instead of 21, which would be 2 backs and 1 tight end. And so we play with a little more 12 personnel, and kind of the emergence of Tyler Croft has given us a little more flexibility there as well to keep another guy on the field who has become an effective blocker but has really good hands and runs good routes.
Coach, it looks like their quarterback does about as good a job protecting the ball as Gary's done this year. How much more of a challenge does that make it for you guys you guys love to turn the ball over?
A tremendous challenge. I think they're, I forget if they're 12 or 8 in turnover margin in the country. They've done a really nice job of taking care of the football and taking it away from their opponents, which means this Saturday it's going to be even more critical, for us to protect the football on offense and on defense to try to create turnovers, because this is a week where you never know how any game could go. But if you just use the past as a predictor, it may be a 0 to 1 turnover game, and whoever gets that turnover, it'll be critical.